In many ways, backup quarterback is one of the most coveted jobs in football and in all of sports, really. Hold the clipboard for the starter, help him prepare for the upcoming matchup, and lead the second unit in practice. That's the bulk of the responsibilities for a backup in the NFL, at least on the surface. Sure, you have to be ready to jump into the action at a moment's notice if something happens to the starter, but at that point, most teams' expectations are so low that as long as you don't embarrass the franchise, you've done your job. Not only do you either have minimal pressure or minimal expectations, but considering the beating most NFL players take, second-string signal callers by far get paid the most in the NFL relative to the physical tolls on their bodies. Let's be clear, you still need a lot of talent to make it in the NFL as a backup, but it seems like there's a sweet spot for some of these guys who are clearly never going to be starters, provided they can be consummate teammates and spell the starter if necessary, especially if the team has an established starter. Look at current Colts backup Brian Hoyer, for example. He backed up Tom Brady in New England for years, or Jim Sorgi, who played all 6 of his NFL seasons backing up Peyton Manning in Indy. As a result, it seems like so many of the backup QBs that stick in the NFL are these quirky, interesting guys who can be content with their role. The NFL has been littered with interesting backups in recent years, like Charlie Whitehurst, better known as Clipboard Jesus for his biblical locks, or Kentucky legend, the hefty lefty Jarrett Lorenzen, who infamously weighed in at almost 300 pounds as a quarterback. But there is a new backup quarterback making waves in the league. He plays down in Jacksonville and might actually have what it takes to be a starter. His name is Gardner Minshew II. For anyone who didn't see Minshew take over for Nick Foles, who suffered a broken clavicle early in Week 1 of the 2019 season, he came in and did a phenomenal job. The 23-year-old Mississippian set the record for completion percentage in a debut performance by successfully linking up on 88% of his passes for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also finished 3rd overall in Week 1 for air yards per attempt at 6.0. So it wasn't just a bunch of checkdowns. He was tossing the ball all over the field. Granted, it was in defeat against a strong Kansas City Chiefs team, but it was very impressive nonetheless, especially considering the rookie was essentially an afterthought in the 2019 NFL Draft, as he was taken by the Jags in the 6th round out of Washington State. It wasn't just Minshew's performance on the field that garnered a lot of attention following the game, but also his look. A look that somehow got even more preposterous and even more awesome since he last ended up in the spotlight for the head of the 2019 NFL Draft. Between Gardner's floppy brown hair, his perfectly corny facial hair, and his thick white headband, the internet was quick to realize that Minshew was undeniably the NFL's version of the famed Napoleon Dynamite character, Uncle Rico. Unsurprisingly, there was a good bit of overlap in the jokes, whether it was about Uncle Rico having a chance to win state, something the character talked about in the movie, or just how much older he looked than 23. But if Minshew can string together some more impressive performances, he will surely have the last laugh. It looks like he will have the opportunity to do just that, as Foles is expected to miss at least 8 to 10 weeks, so it should be fun to see what Uncle Rico can do. So, who is the NFL's Uncle Rico, and how many of the seemingly mythical stories that have come out about Minshew since his NFL debut are actually true? As far as who he is, it depends on who you ask. But the general consensus seems to be that Gardner Minshew is a winner who is poised under pressure and a great teammate, but has some very strange quirks to say the least. For starters, he told The Atlantic about one of his most bizarre rituals. When Minshew is using his exercise bands to do his post-practice arm stretches, he almost always does them in his jockstrap or completely naked. Even stranger, he keeps his patented look, which includes shades and a headband, on during the routine. And while I can't guarantee his teammates are the biggest fans of this, for some reason I have the feeling that it can be chalked up to Gardner being Gardner. Many of his college teammates at Washington State have raved about Minshew's work ethic and dedication to the team. That was obvious before he was even eligible in Pullman. Because of the NCAA's transfer rules, Minshew wasn't able to attend spring camp, but rather than sit around and mope or work with the personal coach, he sought out head coach Mike Leach's mentor, Hal Mumm. During that spring, he would wake up at 4 a.m. to attend 5 a.m. practices and film sessions at Jackson State, which is about a 30-minute drive from his hometown, Brandon. He would do this just to spend time with Mumm, who taught Leach the ins and outs of the air raid. Sounds like a guy that is ready to do whatever it takes to win. On top of that, he just seems like a genuinely good guy. And not just because of the time he spent on Twitter with his adorable puppy to implore fans to come out to Martin Stadium for a Saturday morning game over Thanksgiving break, which is generally a pretty tough draw. If you look past the seemingly flashy Uncle Rico components of his persona, you'll find a humble small-town kid who just loves to play football. Minshew grew up in Mississippi, where he led his high school football team. the Brandon Bulldogs to a 6A state title his senior year. Despite his success, he was only rated as a 3-star prospect and the 70th best pro-style quarterback in his class, and as a result, he received no Power 5 school scholarship offers. He originally committed to play football at Troy, but transferred back home to Northwest Mississippi Community College after just one semester when it looked like he wouldn't really be given a chance to compete with Troy starter Brandon Silvers for the starting job. Before officially deciding to transfer home, he reached back out to Northwest Mississippi coach Jack Wright to gauge his interest. Wright welcomed him with open arms, but warned him that they already had a potential starter, who in Wright's words was, quote, the prototypical Division I quarterback, end quote. A 6'4", 230-pound right-hander who could run probably a 4.6 40-yard dash and throw it 80 yards on the run. How did Minshew respond to Wright's ominous warning? Coach, tell me about my receivers. The response insinuated that Minshew had no qualms about competing and that he felt confident he could earn the job. A job that Coach Wright says Gardner won within a week. His longtime friend Houston Smith attributes Gardner's ability to continually overcome adversity to his unparalleled competitiveness, saying, quote, he was the type of guy that if he was on your team, you loved him, and if you're playing against him, you didn't like him very much. You kind of hated him, end quote. Anyway, in 2015, his first season at Northwest Mississippi CC, he continued his winning ways and led the team to the NJCAA National Football Championship. During the regular season, he threw for over 3,000 yards and had a completion percentage just north of 60%, which got Minshew some looks from Division I programs. He ended up transferring to East Carolina University in 2016, but only started 2 games. The following year, he had to split his time with Thomas Sirk, who had transferred from Duke University, but Minshew came on strong at the end of the season, passing for over 350 yards in 3 straight contests. And perhaps the game that altered Minshew's trajectory the most was his performance against Houston, when he recorded 463 yards and 3 touchdowns. That and the fact that he actually graduated in 2017, so if he were to transfer, he would be eligible to play immediately, and once again helped Minshew attract the attention of other college programs. His late season performances caught the eye of Washington State coach Mike Leach. He reportedly called Minshew in March, after his final season at East Carolina, and said, how'd you like to come and lead the country in passing yards? Minshew excitedly accepted over the offer, and he had to be the 3rd stringer at Alabama under Nick Saban. The quarterback was perfect to join Leach and his air raid offense, as a lot of the packages Coach Wright used at North Mississippi were predicted on various air raid concepts. While he came in as the 3rd guy of a 3-man QB competition, he quickly established himself as a starter. From the jump, Minshew had no trouble lighting up the scoreboard under Leach's tutelage. In his first game against Wyoming, he completed 67% of his passes, 319 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Let's just say that his production didn't exactly teeter out as the season went on. He attempted 662 passes last year and 4,776 yards, which for those counting at home is an absurd 7.2 yards per attempt, especially when you consider the volume of passes. He tacked on 38 touchdowns to just 9 picks, was awarded the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award for top 4th-year QB, earned Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, and finished 5th in the Heisman voting. Oh, and the team finished 11-1, not bad for his first year at a new school with a new coach. Despite all of the success he had at pretty much every level, Gardner still fell in the draft because of his small school pedigree and his relatively slight stature, as he stands just about 6 feet tall. But this is nothing new for Minshew. He has been doubted at every level, and he's given no reason to doubt how he'll perform in Foles' absence. His former coach Mike Leach has the utmost confidence he is poised to excel at the NFL level. He told Locked On Jaguars that, quote, he's a great player. There are guys elsewhere in the league that aren't as ready to play as him, and several won't ever be. I do think he will be very productive, and I think he'll do a good job. He's an incredibly smart guy, so he can pick things up quickly, end quote. Leach is notoriously stingy with his praise, so it speaks volumes that he thinks the quarterback will be able to adapt to the NFL game so quickly. His current head coach, Doug Marrone, gave a slightly less glowing review of where the quarterback stands. He said, quote, I feel better about him, Minshew, now, today, after week 1, than I did probably during the preseason. I think that's fair to say. I think the work during the preseason was able to get him ready for things like this. I don't know. I'm hoping that's the case, end quote. This is a pretty weak endorsement, but it's important to consider Marrone's repeated failures as a head coach in developing a young quarterback. It's very possible that the coach is trying to keep expectations as low as possible to decrease the professional scrutiny towards him. Besides, Marrone's career head coaching record is still 5 games under 500 too, so I'd wait before hastily accepting his meager compliments as an indictment of Minshew's ability to play at the NFL level. At least his teammates are excited about the quarterback. Quote, fearless, wide receiver DJ Chark told the Florida Times-Union. He went in and did his thing. We were upset Nick was out, but there was never a point when we said, dang, now we have to go with Gardner, end quote. Hopefully Minshew can continue to play well and maybe even lead the Jags to some wins. This way, every Sunday we will have the pleasure of seeing his exciting play on the field and his absurd Uncle Rico-esque looks in the post-game pressers. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. If you have any ideas for cool videos, let us know down in the comment section. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS for more cool videos every single day. We'll see you next time.